This first Lesson 7 video is focused on a few key considerations for thinking about print projects. Sometimes, depending on the context of your work, you'll be working on pieces of a project, for instance, the written copy or content that you'll then pass along to a graphic designer who might do the final visual prep and the layout for a brochure. Other times, however, you as a professional writer will work as the writer and the editor and the illustrator and the photographer and the designer. In this case, you have to be aware of some key considerations for print projects. This video is focused on introducing 5 considerations that apply to our Lesson 7 focus, which is brochures, but really span all similar print projects. And I want to start with this, a key principle that transcends all of the principles in this video. Ask questions first. Ask lots of questions. Rhetorical considerations you might want to ask up front when starting a project include, what have we done in the past? What sort of precedents have we established with our communication? Is a fill in the blank the right document for the job? Or might a different type of document work better for this audience, context, and purpose? Is this a one-time project, or am I creating something that has to be durable and sustainable? A file, for instance, that might be updated and printed again 6 months down the road, a year down the road. Technical questions include considerations like, what's the project budget? How big is the run of this going to be? 500 copies? 5,000 copies? What files will the printer need? What can they best work with? And at what resolution does the printer require images and graphics to be set at? What will result in the best quality print production? Okay, with questions like these in mind, let's focus in on some technical aspects of creating, designing, and printing documents like brochures. And the first consideration is understand the differences between screen and print resolution. What looks good on screen isn't always going to look good in print. Most web-ready images are saved at a low resolution, so they load quickly in someone's web browser or download quickly if need be. That's ideal for online reading and viewing, but not ideal for print. We're going to look at 3 images now. All 3 of them look pretty much the same on the screen as we see at the top here, right? But when we compare, though, a 72 dpi dots per inch or ppi pixels per inch image to a 600 dots per inch image in print, as shown at the bottom here, there's a pretty drastic difference in quality. Printers can handle much higher resolution than computer screens can. A key shift that document designers need to make in their thinking relates to that shift from screen to print or print to screen. A few key considerations related to resolution. The higher your resolution, the higher the quality of your image, the higher your image resolution, the bigger your file size is going to be. Higher image resolution is going to be pretty much lost on computer screens because even if the file itself is high resolution, the computer monitor projecting the image is not. A good general rule for creating images for the screen is to save them at between 72 to 96 pixels per inch, which most monitors read. When designing images for print, though, I'd really suggest checking your printer, your physical printer, or checking with your printer if it's a person or a service to see what they can best provide and produce. Generally, though, 300 to 600 pixels per inch is a pretty good rule. A key thing to remember is that you can always convert a high-quality image to a low-quality image, but you can almost never convert a low-quality image to a high-quality image. What I always suggest to students and other designers is that they do their initial design work as high-quality, high-resolution. Then they can save lower resolution, smaller file versions of their work from that master file if need be. So here's a quick example. This is the print design front of an invite I created last year. It was set to print at 9 inches by 4 inches. This is the version I sent to the printer after I added more text at the bottom, including details of the event. But this image file itself was created and saved at 300 dots per inch, which made it a 22 meg file. I saved it as an EPS file because I created it in Illustrator. However, when I saved a version of it to add to our website, I reset the screen resolution to 72 DPI and saved it as a GIF file. It wound up being about 500K. Compare that to the earlier 22 meg version. A second consideration is understanding file types. So let's talk briefly about some of the most common image file formats you're going to encounter as a document designer. A GIF and JPEG are universal image formats. Any computer running any operating system should be able to open them. They compress images during saving, so the file sizes are typically smaller. Screen-ready photos should be saved as JPEGs. Simple screen-ready line drawings or illustrations should be saved as GIFs. TIFF is another image file format. When you save an image as a TIFF, it isn't as compressed as a JPEG or a GIF, so much of the image quality is retained. This also means that TIFFs are pretty big files. Same with PICs. And you can import TIFFs and PICs into most word processing and layout software. Then there are what's called native files. For instance, an image saved as a PSD is saved in Photoshop format. You won't be able to share this file with someone who doesn't have Photoshop installed on their computer, and you also won't be able to import this image into Word or Publisher or PowerPoint. It's not a compatible file the way a TIFF or a PIC is. The general rule is that you should always save a high-quality, layers intact version of an image file in its native format. Then you can save versions of that master file in the formats you need. Think back to the example I just shared. I had a high-quality EPS file that I then saved as a lower-quality screen-ready GIF for screen viewing. The third consideration is related to graphics and images and photographs. And you guys may not need to hear this, but this is something I talk about a lot with my undergraduate students. Because we live and they practice in a culture of Google image searching and downloading and screen capturing and more. But as a professional, you can't just Google image search and grab graphics or photos for a print project. The quality of the images is just one consideration. If you grab something off a web search, chances are it's going to be a low resolution web ready version that is not going to lend itself well to print production. But the other larger, bigger issue has to do with copyright. Most of what we see online is copyright protected in some form or another. So I have two suggestions for safe ways to ensure you're not violating someone else's copyright. First, if you own your own small company or you're working with a nonprofit or another organization, as the document design specialist or communications manager or whatever title you find yourself working under, you might suggest building a photo archive. Assign a volunteer, or you yourself might get in the habit of taking photos at all of the company's or the organization's events. Take photos around the office, take photos of your building, take photos of people working. You might need these down the road for a media release, a pamphlet, a flyer, a web page, a brochure, and more. You will probably want to develop an image release form that you can share with people to ensure that they're comfortable with you using photographs in your brochures and flyers and more. The second suggestion to protect against copyright violation and to access high quality, high resolution images, graphics, photos, illustrations, and more is to buy a subscription, either an individual subscription for yourself or an organizational subscription for your small business or nonprofit to a stock photo service. I use 123RF, iStock Photo, and Veer. And all three of these are great for accessing images for print projects. Most downloads cost based on the quality of the image and the copyright restrictions. For instance, if you want to license an image and ensure that no one else can download and use that image for any other purposes, it's going to cost more than just purchasing the right to use the image in a brochure for, say, one-time use. Fourth, you're going to want to understand some key print-related terms. I'm going to use a recent project as an example. And this is my example. I know you can't see the detail very well, but that's okay because we're focusing just kind of on the big picture print dynamics in the lingo here. This is a pretty simple design. It's 4 panels on an 8.5 by 11 inch page. The interior is set in landscape orientation. When printers refer to flat size, a flat size is the size of the page laid out flat without any fold. So here it's 8.5 by 11. The finished size is the finished size of the document once it is folded and finalized. So this is our finished size. Paper stock has to do with the type and the weight of paper. Obviously, this isn't something that we wanted to produce on standard copier paper because the colors, the text, everything would bleed through. We just wouldn't get a high quality print. So this is a heavier stock of paper. Card stock or cover stock is heavyweight paper used for business cards and postcards, brochures like this with a simple fold, covers of documents. It's typically 60 to 130 pounds. I think this is about 80-pound weight paper. Standard paper, the typical weight of paper that we use in our printers and copiers is usually 20 to 24 pounds. And that's fine for printing single-sided documents with maybe minimal graphics or visuals, but when you've got something full color with a ton of graphics like this, you probably want something heavier. Another print term is varnish. You can either do an overall varnish or a spot varnish, and that's a shiny varnish-like effect. We did not have a varnish added to this. Bleed refers to when the print bleeds off the page, where there's no visible margin, and you can see on every edge in every panel on this, we have a page bleed where the ink essentially goes right off the page. Ink color for print as we discussed in lesson 6 when talking about color, typical CMYK. The two dominant colors here is the purple and the green, which are the two colors that we use for this lab. This is a simple fold brochure. There's just this one fold. If it was a complex fold brochure, there would be multiple folds, maybe accordion style or folding in. Here's an example of a complex fold piece that I really like. This is from a credit union here at Michigan State University. So we see the finished size here is pretty small. It can easily go into a pocket or purse, but if we open it up, we see evidence of complex fold. This is actually a campus map with the locations of the credit union ATMs noted. This is an example of a complex fold. A spread is made up of all of the pages or panels visible when you open a document out flat. Trims refer to an adjustment in paper size either before but most typically after printing. For this, there was no trim because we used the full 8.5 by 11 page. Binding is the method of fixing multiple sheets and can be as simple as stapling, but it can also be stitching, sewing, gluing. Here's an example of a wire bound or wire binding. One other print convention is the building in of perforations in a document, and that allows you to just tear away a piece of a document. So if you're creating, imagine a trifold brochure and that final page is an application form that you want volunteers to fill out and return to you, you might have it perforation printed so that they can easily tear off that chunk of the page. The fifth consideration is getting your project to the printer. You might be producing the document yourself, relying upon a copy service place. You might be using a local print service. You might be uploading your document for a web-based print-on-demand service to produce and ship to you. If you have access to your print shop, you can ask early on what file formats they prefer, if they have any specific considerations for you to consider as you prepare and send your document. They might even be able to share with you their estimate or quote request sheet so you can kind of see the types of things that they're looking for, and they're going to ask you when you turn over your document for printing. If you're planning to use a web-based print-on-demand service, spec out the service early on. Spend time on their website. Get familiar with what the upload and submit process will be like. That way you can best design for and plan for that process. And the final consideration. Save your project for sustainability. To be a good document designer, you have to be a good project manager. As you work on a project, be deliberate in how and where you save files. When you're ready to archive a project, again, be deliberate. For instance, whenever I work on any sort of project, whether it's a web development design project, a brochure design development project, I archive on my computer and pass along to the client a digital project folder. In that folder, I save the final version of the document, Then in one subfolder, I'll save all the text documents, all of the versions, essentially the copy content trail for the whole project. In another subfolder, I'll save all the font face files used in the project. Finally, I'll have another subfolder with all the graphics, images, and photographs stored. So if we look in the projects folder on my computer hard drive, we'll see the project folder for a brochure project I recently worked on. There we can see the two final documents in the native InDesign format and also saved as a PDF. If we go into the text and docs folder, this is the trail of copy, all of the textual content written, edited, revised in Word. If we go over into the images folder, we can see a range of different image file types. These are all of the graphics, illustrations, and photographs to the brochure. This way, if I ever need to go back to the project, I have all the files I need right there in that one folder. Likewise, the client shouldn't have to get back to me asking for an image file they can't locate or asking what font face I used for what text element. All of the design collateral is saved in that folder. Okay, this was a lot. It was covered pretty quickly. And of course, the trick to all of this is that it's all best learned and encountered in practice as you work on a project and you navigate these considerations. But I hope this provided you all with some key framing questions and document design considerations to bring to a print project like brochures.